Hello, it's the Queen here. Today I'm going to show you my favorite chess routine called the Queen's Gambit that I made up.
Okay, no silliness. That is not true. The Queen did not make up the opening called the Queen's Gambit. It was played in 1620 by one of the world's first professional chess players called Giorgino Greco. Alright, let's get into it. Queen's pawn to d4, black responds with d5. Now, we want to start our gambit move, which is the pawn to c4. A gambit comes from the Italian word gambito, which means to trip up. So we're trying to trip up this center pawn and gain control of the center by offering up this pawn for free. Now, if black takes the pawn, it's called the Queen's Gambit accepted, if he accepts the gift we're offering, a little pawn. If he doesn't take the center pawn, then it's called the Queen's Gambit declined, which typically black will not take and defend the center pawn with this e pawn coming forward to e6. But today we're going to look at the Queen's Gambit accepted, and we're going to show you a little trap that you can do off this. So they accept the gambit and take the c4 pawn. Now at this point we just push our king's pawn up, opening up a little discovered attack on the center pawn with his bishop. Now, at this point, black may decide to try and defend this pawn, which can be where black can get into some troubles. So, they push their b5 pawn up here, defending center pawn. Now, at this point, we want to push our a pawn up to a4, making an attack on the b5 pawn. If he takes us, no problemo. We've got our bishop that can take the c pawn and line up on this nice weak pawn on the diagonal here, and we will have a double attack from the queen and the rook on a4. So we'll potentially score this pawn a little bit later. But if he doesn't decide to take our a4 pawn and he wants to defend this b5 pawn, this is where he's going to get into trouble, because if he defends it with a6 or c6, both of these moves fail. Let's look at them. So if he defends b5, moving pawn to a6, we simply take it, because this rook is doing what to this little pawn? What's behind the rook? The black rook. So it is a tactical play called a pin. We are pinning the pawn to the rook. If he takes, it's goodbye rookie. So a weaker player may make that move, defending there, but you won't get away with it with a stronger player. Let's say that black decides to defend the b5 pawn with the c pawn instead. Well, we do exactly the same move. We take it again. We can take the b5 pawn, and black responds, taking it back to defend its c4 pawn in the center here. Now, this is where we've got a couple of options. We could push our b pawn up here, which is not a bad move. If black takes us, we've got a nice little attack on this b5 pawn, and we've got the king in check. And we've got the queen also lined up on this b3 pawn, which would be nice control of this diagonal, attacking the weak pawn on f7. But there's a better move than pushing this pawn to b3, which is where we set up our trap. Can you see it? Maybe pause your video for a little bit and have a think about it and come back. Alright, so the move is with the queen. Where can we move our queen? That will set up our little trap, f3, on this nice diagonal. Now, If black tries to block the attack on the rook, well, we simply just take the bishop. So typically they move their knight c6 to block it, save their rook, but guess what? We win this knight. Okay, and we have a nice little fork on the king and the rook. At this point, bishop defends, blocks the check from the queen, and that allows this queenie to protect the rook in the corner. So we now have to move our queen out of attack. We can go to a6 or back to f3, and that is it. We now have mission accomplished and got a knight from the Queen's Gambit in the accepted line.
What a splendid video from the Chess Shark, my favorite YouTuber. I urge you to subscribe to the Shark's channel. God bless. Ta-ta.